Well, what's up, guys, and welcome to Scourge of Waterloo, episode 35, part 5. This will be our final part of our playthrough of the Battle of Waterloo as the French. So in the last video, the Prussians finally arrived. We sent forward our cavalry of Jacquinot's division to disrupt their approach and make sure that all their guns deployed uh, far away so that they really couldn't hammer on the fortresses. And then we let them pound themselves to dust against the hard anvil of the fortresses here. And we left off kind of right in the middle of it, and we're going to pick it up here. It is 1830. We have 2 hours left in the battle, so let's get this thing rolling and get the video going here. So we kind of left off right in the heat of battle last time around here. We were in kind of a sticky situation over here. We had a square kind of break away en route, but we've since stabilized the situation. Actually, here's the square router, and we're going to stabilize the situation. Now, this infantry is trying to advance, but along with some cavalry, but we have cavalry here ourselves, so we can really be, we're just going to sneak a square up here. They're going to form square, we're going to form square, and everything's going to be pretty even over here, except, again, we have the guns, so we'll begin blowing this square to pieces. And this will basically reestablish the fortress square barricade for these guns here. And now the whole thing is complete from here to here and from here to here, although these guys are in line because there's no cavalry around. We have the Imperial Guard holding the objective here, which is worth like 200 points a minute, an obscene amount of points. We're up to 66,000 points. We are, I don't even know, what is that, 36,000 points ahead of what we need for a major victory. Way more than double what we need, and we're still going here. So this is basically a complete overwhelming victory at this point in terms of what it takes to actually beat the scenario, in terms of how many points we have to require. We are way, way, way ahead of what we need. So the rest of this here is just us putting a pounding on the Prussians as much as we can. So again, every unit, all these Prussian forces basically all face the same dilemma when they come forward, which is how do we get close? How do we get close enough to break these units and make them run? It's very hard because every one of these units is supported by close-range artillery that the Prussians cannot get to, but that can inflict maximum damage to the Prussians. So this square, we've already blown in a few minutes, we've blown the complete front end of it away just with close-range artillery fire. And so what happens is these Prussian units advance, and they're just not able to stay in position long enough to really get anything done. Because from the moment they come to within engage distance of these other units that they're trying to make run, they're taking just a tremendous pounding from all the guns here. And this, despite the fact that this looks like an amazing amount of cavalry coming at them, the fact is the way that we're set up with these squares, the cavalry really can't get past them. So that with no other arm with them but cavalry, I mean, they could be an entire corps of cavalry, and it wouldn't be able to break this just because of the way it's set up. And one of the key things the Prussians have kind of gotten wrong here is they've sent a lot of their infantry forward on their right and a lot of their cavalry forward on their left, but for the most part, they're pretty separated. Occasionally, you know, from me not watching, you're going to see something like this. But we will countercharge this. These guys will retreat. No problem, I have reserves. The most important thing is we're going to charge this, countercharge this cavalry here and run them off. These guys will retreat, but that's okay. We can bring these guys up, put them in square, and, you know, this is why I always have backup plans. You know, because occasionally something does happen where I'm not paying attention. Keep in mind, I TC all my troops. That has some pros and cons. The pros are that my troops will stay and do exactly what I want them to do and not do anything on their own initiative. Meaning, if I set them up in this configuration, they're going to stay that way. The downside of TCing is you really have to pay attention to everything all the time, because when you TC troops, you're removing the AI's ability to do anything with them, basically, to command them at all. And so they're basically defenseless. The units don't know to form square if they're being charged by cavalry. They won't, retreat if they're, got units on the, in front of them that have them massively outgunned. They'll just stand there and get slaughtered until they rout. And they won't work with other units to create a functional battle plan. So there are pros and cons to working without using the AI, which is how I mostly play. I believe the pros outweigh the cons once you have enough practice doing it. That's not to say that nothing ever happens outside of me viewing what I'm watching, and that I'm not paying attention to. But I've learned to set up contingencies and have support troops, so that even if I do miss something, it's usually pretty easy to, okay, well, I got this unit here, let me charge and disrupt what the AI is doing long enough for me to get things back to what I want them to be. So it does take some practice. It takes a lot of awareness of what's going on the field, and it also takes a lot of knowledge of what the AI is most likely to do. And that just comes from experience of having played against the AI over and over again, and just really getting used to and knowing what its tactics are likely to be. So that most of the time I can set my formations up and not have to watch them. And they'll do kind of exactly what I want them to do because of the way I've set them up. Most of this is basically just about wanting the Prussians to come forward and then beat them with artillery. That's the whole kind of name of the game here. But yeah, occasionally something will happen. A squadron will charge, man. I'll have a unit in line and I'm not paying attention. It happens. But I believe the pros of playing without the AI and actually taking control of all your troops yourself outweigh the absolute mess that ensues by letting the AI control your troops. For me, it's kind of the one or the other. If I'm going to play and I'm really trying to win, then I will almost always do what I'm doing here, where I TC everything. I take charge of every unit on the field, and I control everything myself, and I don't let the AI interfere at all. Other than, accidentally, if I forget to TC a unit. But those units will always give themselves away because they'll start moving on their own, and I'll be like, hey, where the hell do you think you're going? And I'll see that they're not TC'd, and I'll just TC them. Or if I'm going to play with the AI, it's either going to be something like what you saw in the last video, where it was just a specific attack. I didn't necessarily care how our cavalry did, so much as I just wanted them to attack the enemy cavalry and make the guns and make the Prussian guns retreat, back here, so that they weren't able to come forward and set up, in here. I wanted them to set up back here. And I didn't really care whether that engagement was won or lost. Our cavalry ended up doing pretty good, but it wasn't the purpose of the attack. And the other thing is, if I'm like playing hits or something. If I'm playing hits, then I'm playing hits to experience more of what it's like to be a commander on the battlefield, rather than what I'm doing here, which is really kind of tactically micromanaging every single unit. And the commanders are really not serving any purpose whatsoever, because I'm controlling everything. They're really just, objective holders and commanders to click on to see how many points I have. Napoleon hasn't done anything through this whole battle other than sit at La Belle Alliance. Whereas if I was playing this, scenario as headquarters in the saddle, and I was Napoleon, it would be a very, very different story. I'd be having to run all over the field to see what was going on, and I would have to constantly be, issuing orders and so forth, and using the command map and changing attack stances on leaders and giving them orders and stuff. in that situation, I'm not necessarily trying to win so much. It's just to, play for the experience of it. But when I'm trying to win, like when I'm trying to show you guys the best ways to beat scenarios like this, I have generally found that TCing your units is better than letting the AI handle your units. The AI doesn't know the strategies and tactics that I use. A lot of the tactics and strategies that I use are kind of gamey, outside the realm of reality maybe, but the AI doesn't know that and so won't use them. So I have to TC everything to make formations like this that the AI will not make on its own. The AI will not just sit here like this and let its artillery inflict the brunt of the damage. Even if I were to set them on defend or hold, units would be moving around, constantly moving to engage enemy, and it would become a complete mess. And the way the fortress really works is not by doing that. The fortress works by staying put, locking down the formation so that it's basically kind of an impenetrable wall that infantry and cavalry cannot get by, and as they approach, they're done in by the artillery. And they can't hurt the artillery because they cannot get close enough to it, and the guns are also screened by skirmishers. So all these units that are TC'd and locked down in this position where they won't move, that's really what makes this work. But the AI would never do that. It doesn't think like that. It would, oh, here's an enemy unit, let me move out to engage that unit, or move to engage that unit, or shift the guns around here, or constantly just moving stuff around. So that's why, in order to use the tactics that I use, you pretty much have to become a master at using the take charge button and controlling all your troops yourself. And I think we're about to run this cavalry squadron off here. Yeah, that was we were a much bigger squadron. They surrendered. That was a French squadron, and this squadron looked like it had been involved in some battles beforehand. So we made quick work of them nicely. So yeah, the Prussians are kind of stuck in square out here now. We got to, just because of this one cavalry unit, we've driven this square off. These units are going to get beat on, especially this one. It's right in canister range. You can see the whole front of it is gone. This unit might just be on the outside. I'm not surprised that these guys broke. Their whole front end was shot out. And now you can see a lot of these Prussian units are sitting back outside the range of the fortress. Got cavalry back here, some infantry battalions here. Because at this point, they just don't really know what to do. Like I said, there's really no way to approach this and not catch hell from the guns that are just right behind it. And far enough away that you can't shoot them, and close enough that they can drop canister on you. You can see all this cavalry that's out here. They're just running about, milling around out here, just out of canister range, and not really knowing what to do with themselves, because there's really nothing they can do with themselves. Cavalry will always charge kind of what the closest unit is within their charge range. There's no choose specific target for a cavalry squadron or a cavalry brigade the way you can with artillery. If we click on choose specific target for an artillery batter, we can click on the unit's flag and target that specific unit. Cavalry can't do that, and I think cavalry would be really stupidly overpowered if it could. But the way it works is that when cavalry goes and hits the charge button, they just naturally charge the unit that is closest to them. I figured that out pretty early in working on the game's mechanics and trying to figure out how it worked. That was part of the real the beginning of the fortress, and the original fortress was really just two squares and the artillery behind it. And in testing that's kind of how I figured out that cavalry cannot charge the guns, because when they hit the charge button, metaphorically speaking, they charge the closest thing to them, and that would be squares. And then later on, things developed where I would start to build up the fortress with more things and more formations to make it more adaptable. I put skirmishers in front of the squares to to bait the cavalry into charging and actually get them into range to get canister shots on them and so forth. But yeah, basically, no matter how many, it could be, like I said, it could be 20,000 cavalrymen out here, and they could not get by this because of the game's mechanics. Because when they come into range and charge, they charge the closest thing to them. That would be the squares. So there's really no way for them to charge through, because that's just not the way the charge function works. You always try to, it will always try to charge what is closest to them. There's really no way to approach this except from behind, where the guns would be the closest thing. The squares are always the closest thing because they're out in front. And that's basically how I figured out how to nullify cavalry. So, what they'll do is they'll just kind of wander into range here, and they'll stop. They'll stop because they cannot charge the squares, but neither can they charge the guns, because if they try to charge, they're gonna charge the squares. So they end up just turning around, and that's kind of what you'll see over and over and over again. The cavalry will come forward trying to do something, but because of the way the game works, there's really nothing they can do. Like I said in the last video, the squares are basically force fields that cavalry cannot penetrate. So I can't see it because I don't have line of sight, but there's definitely more Prussian units back here. And they're kind of holed up back here. I'm not sure why they're not bringing them forward. My guess is that the AI's plan has basically completely just backfired, and it doesn't really have another plan of what to do. It's run into a brick wall, and it sometimes when the AI does, when that happens, when the AI runs into a situation where they are literally brick walled and they cannot move past this, they just kind of back up and stop and sit there, and they don't do anything anymore. They haven't quite reached that point yet in terms of so they're still attacking with their units they have out front here, but there were a lot more Prussian troops than is actually showing up here. Some of them will show up later on, but a lot of them just end up sitting back there because the AI kind of gives up on its attack plan because it's just not working out for them. So again, you'll see all this cavalry will do the same thing. It will move into range, you know, kind of just outside of canister range, kind of realize that it can't do anything, and it'll turn around and walk away. And they'll just keep doing that over and over again. They'll back up, they'll come forward, they'll back up, they'll come forward, and just kind of doing that over and over again. And, you know, we'll pick at them as they come up, they'll retreat, they'll come forward again, we'll pick at them again and get a few more. You know, but there's really nothing cavalry on its own can do against this formation. So they're just kind of stuck out there. Yeah, there they go, turning around. They get, you know, they take 1 or 2 rounds of canister and they fall back. Now there is some more Prussian cavalry over here, but they're just sitting here. And rather than coming forward and helping these squares out by running off these skirmisher units, so at least my squares are tangling with them evenly, they're just sitting back here. There's only 1 squadron moving here, you know, and it can't help everybody. So this unit is now forming line, and I'm going to try and make them form square. If they don't form square, there they go. Okay. So I just moved the cavalry a little forward just to trigger the square formation. And the reason I'm doing that is because I have skirmishers out in front of my square, and the skirmishers are just shooting these squares open here. And I'm actually maneuvering more skirmishers. I just split off some more to basically fill out this whole area with skirmishers and just really shoot these squares up. Because while I have a square here too, my skirmishers are screening everything here. I'm putting these guys out here to screen this cavalry unit. We have these skirmish units screening that cavalry unit. You know, so everything is nice and screened, and there's no cavalry around to run off my skirmishers. All the cavalry is like over here, and they just keep doing the same thing. They come forward, they get shot at, they fall back. They come forward, they get shot at, they fall back. And all I have to do over here really is just keep the supply wagons going to keep the guns in canister. Otherwise, the fortress will do everything itself here against cavalry, because of just if they tried to charge right now, they would charge the squares, because the squares are what's closest to them, and that's just the way the game works. And I didn't have those guys TC'd, so they stopped as soon as they came into engage distance of the square. But I actually want them out in front of this cavalry to screen them. That won't stop the fact that the cavalry's there and still keeping those units in square. So there they go, off they run. Just like I said, same old thing. They come forward, they get shot at, they run away. They come forward, they get shot at, and they run away. And, that's really all they can do. We got another lone cavalry squadron here, and I'm shifting this square over just to keep them locked up in here and not have a chance to get through. Though they don't look like they really have any intention of trying, and they'll just turn around as this square was shooting at them. You know, this cavalry would be better off, and this cavalry back here, by coming forward and getting itself involved over here, where it might actually be able to do some good, drive off some of these skirmishers maybe. They have a lot more cavalry back here, and they're just not using it. I have a lot more cavalry too, and I just don't need to use it, because I'm not really using it to run troops off. I'm really just using it to force enemy units into square. For a couple of reasons. One, my units are in square, so it keeps things on an even playing field. And the other thing is, artillery actually does a lot more damage to squares. It really breaks them up nicely. And you can see that this square has, all of this is shot up. The front end is gone, and some of the side here is gone. So this square is really no longer even viable, as the whole front end of the square is basically gone. And that's just our skirmishers shooting them up. I don't even believe this unit is in canister range. I think that's all just skirmisher fire. You can see this skirmisher unit here, where this square, we've shot out the whole corner. And I really don't even need to watch anything going on over here. Nothing is going to change. They'll come forward, we'll blast them with some grape shots, some canister, and they'll run off. This is just impenetrable. The cavalry cannot get by this. And over in Place and Noir, the Prussians haven't even gotten over here. Although artillery on the other side of the creek here is firing. I don't know how effective they're being, but we're not even engaged over here. This is about as far as the Prussians reach. And so as long as there's no Prussian cavalry over here, I get to have the skirmisher line here for free. And these skirmishers are just ripping apart these squares. And there goes what's left of that square. You can see the entire kind of bottom half of it. They're just routing one after the other. And in that instance, it wasn't even really canister. It wasn't really close range artillery that did it. It was skirmisher fire. So what are we looking at here? 74,500 points. We're so far ahead that it's almost inconsequential at this point. We've taken about 4,700 casualties. We've inflicted 17,400 casualties. It's a difference of 10 to 1. They're losing 10 men for every one of ours. It's ridiculous. So one of our guns has pulled back here, probably because they're out of ammo. So I'll bring them forward. Two of our guns have actually pulled back. and I'll move the supply wagon right over here, so that when the guns come up, they'll just automatically be resupplied. That's probably why they fell back. They were just out of ammunition. Like I said, with this many batteries, and how fast some of the guns, especially the howitzers, and I'll bet you those are the 2 howitzers, because each one of these batteries has 2 howitzers and the 6 regular guns. And the howitzers only carry like 7 or 8 rounds of canister. So again, this unit comes forward, they're forced into square. We're just going to do the same thing. We're just going to shoot them up with skirmishers, and eventually whittle them down, and they'll run away. It really pays to keep your cavalry close up here like this, because everything that comes forward has to form square, because they come into the charge range of the cavalry. And by keeping the skirmishers in front of the cavalry, we're really protecting them, so that they're not losing. You can see this; they're really not losing men. There's not a lot of horses on the ground. But yeah, like I was saying, the howitzers especially really run out of canister quickly when all these batteries are being used at close range like this, and they're going through canister very quickly. So unless you really keep an eye on that and do a lot of supply wagon runs, some of your guns will fall off the line as they run out of canister. And yeah, one of the things you can do is just bring them back up and put the supply wagon where they're going to be when they come up, and they'll just auto resupply as they set up here. So more units coming forward. Again, they're going to run into the same problem. If they try to come further forward, they're going to have to form square. And I'm bringing another square up here because hopefully I can block off this Prussian unit here and keep them from helping out units over here by keeping them trapped with these squares. So our skirmisher units, I see, break and run. Those guys just set up too. They just set up. It's just not a good situation. And this will hold forever. See, some of these cannon only hold a couple of canister rounds. You've really got to keep up with them. You know, and the pace is slowing down now at this point. Not as many Prussian units are coming into that that grape shot range. So it's not going to be as frantic as it was over the past hour and a half or so since the Prussians showed up. At the beginning, it was just real frantic. If you remember in the last video, the canister, the grape shot was just going off like fireworks. You know, it was just never ending, and I had to do a lot of supply wagon runs to keep those guns in canister. But it's starting to slow down at this point. A lot of these Prussian units are routing. They're backing up. They're not willing to come forward and engage anymore, they've kind of pulled back, and things are starting to slow down. So we're up to 76,000 points. And the battle has slowed down enough that I can start going back to other parts of the field and just making sure everything is cool. As you can see, we still have La Haye Sainte. We have 3 battalions in there, so we have plenty of men. There's still nothing going on any of these parts of the field. But you can see the Grand Battery has largely stopped firing because I'm sure most of them are out of ammo at this point. So I have to do some supply wagon runs and get them all shooting again. I'm sure they're all out of ammo. Because we spent the past hour and a half over by the Place and Y area handling that. So, you know, most of the guns on the Grand Battery are probably out. So yeah, things are really starting to calm down now. And some of these cavalry units are running away. They'll come forward, they'll get shot at, eventually some of them will rout. They've still got another brigade set up back here that they haven't engaged yet. They've got at least 2 brigades of cavalry over here that they haven't engaged yet. These guys are finally running off. But I think the bulk of the Prussian aggressiveness has been spent at this point. You know, they gave it a good shot. Certainly in the last video when they came, they really gave it a good shot. But like I said, I've really never seen the AI be able to overcome fortresses like this. They can't quite put it together. I mean, I do a lot to stop them from doing some of the things they could do. You know, what would have happened if I didn't interfere with their approach at the beginning and they let their guns come to whatever range they would have brought them to, which probably would not have been this far back. You know, they probably would have brought them closer. You know, that could have had an effect on weakening the squares and making some of these fortresses fall apart. But I know that kind of stuff ahead of time, and that's why I had my cavalry engage them as they were approaching to force those guns to turn around. But as far as just using infantry and cavalry, there's really no way past this. You know, it's not fair. There's just nowhere to approach where you're not going to come under kind of withering close-range artillery fire. Because of the way it's set up, it's just one battery after another all along the line, and there's no way to get to the guns, and there's no way to approach the units in front protecting the guns without coming into close range, coming into range of the canister fire. So things are definitely quieting down here at this point now. It's now 7 p.m. Starting to get into the home stretch here. Got about an hour and a half to go, but it's starting to quiet down. You can see some of the guns on the Grand Battery are starting to fire again now that they've been resupplied. We'll get them going again. This cavalry will keep, like I said, it will keep wandering forward, keep running away, keep wandering forward, and until there's basically none of them left. 22,000 points just from that Place Noire objective. Wow. You know what the irony here is that we literally could have sat and done nothing until the Prussians arrived, including capturing High San. We didn't even need to do that. You know, and just grab the Place Noire objective when it appeared, and that still would have given us enough points to win. Just that one objective. Even if we had never grabbed La High San, even if we did nothing. Just the Place Noire objective. It's not there yet, but you know, it's 200 points every minute, so it's going to climb very, very quickly. And there's still an hour and a half left. Because you only need 30,000 points for a major victory, and as you can see, we are way, way past that. So what do we got moving down the road here? It's just a supply wagon, I think. I don't think the Prussians are making really any effort to bring up whatever they've got a whole ring of troops back in these woods that you can kind of see on the command map, but I can't really see them on the map themselves or on the mini map. but they're really not making any effort to bring them forward. I've got a second little outline of a fortress here set up behind this one. Don't think it's ever going to really be an issue, though. And you can see we have a gun pulling back over here, and it's probably just out of ammo. You know, I'm firing or the past hour or so, I've been firing artillery at such a crazy rate that I can see these guys pulling back, and yep, they're out of canister. And it's a howitzer. Howitzers will pull back when they're out of canister. So bring the supply wagon over to where the howitzer would be placed in line, and then once I do that, I will reform, bring the howitzer back up. The supply wagon will already be right there, and it will resupply them. So you got all these Prussian units that are kind of sitting back now, and this is what I mean by I think their aggressiveness has largely gone out of the wind has gone out of the Prussian sail, so to speak, as they're really not willing to come forward and take any more losses at this point. I think the AI maybe reaches a threshold where it takes a certain amount of or loses a certain percentage of its force or something, and then decides that it's no longer worth it and stops trying. You know, it kind of will not get itself killed to the last man. You know, because it was a real abrupt drop off, between, where we were at the end of the last video, where the Prussians were kind of all out assaulting us, and within 15 minutes of this video starting, it was all falling apart for the Prussians, and very quickly they had a lot of units over here rout in succession, and their whole center and right basically collapsed. They're still gimping around over here with their cavalry, but their center and their right basically collapsed and ran away, and they're really not making any effort to try and regroup and renew for another assault. So I think the AI reaches a certain point where it kind of has lost enough men that it doesn't attack anymore. It just tries to hold on to what it's got, which is really nothing. This ground is valueless over here. Because it's a complete drop-off. Other than the cavalry, none of these units over here are really doing anything at this point, or making any effort to come forward and try and get any kind of attack going. I know they've got more infantry back in these woods. If they brought them forward, they've still got a large contingent of cavalry here. There's enough time left. They've definitely still got enough forces to try and make another push. But I think they've blown through so many men in that first and second wave that I think the AI no longer really considers it viable to keep attacking. It had very little luck. We pretty much occupy the same ground in the same position now that we did when the Prussians first arrived. Nothing has really changed for us. Certainly you can see a huge difference in the number of dead on our side versus all these Prussian bodies just everywhere out here. Versus, yeah, we have some dead bodies back here, but it's nothing compared to the losses we've inflicted on the Prussians. Just a crazy amount of losses. Like I said, the casualties give it away. We've only taken less than 5,000 casualties, and we've inflicted almost 15,000 casualties. So a difference of about 10 to 1. So I got a whole cavalry brigade up here that's basically unengaged. Veal's brigade or Vial's brigade. And I have them up here because I'm anticipating, as the AI is prone to do in these long battles where night becomes an issue. We certainly saw it in both of the full Battle of Ligny scenarios. As it begins to get darker, the AI will try to move its artillery forward, and at that point they become, because they're all going to limber up and start moving forward, and they become really, really vulnerable to being run down by cavalry. So I have cavalry up here kind of in anticipation of when it starts to get dark out, and the Prussians do that. So almost 80,000 points. We're still under 5,000 casualties that we've taken, and we've inflicted almost 18,000 casualties on the enemy. Those are combined. I couldn't tell you how many are Prussian and how many are Allied. But given that we had inflicted about 4,000 casualties on the Allies before the Prussians arrived, you could probably tack on another 2,000, or maybe even less, because the Grand Battery ran out of ammo. So most of this is Prussian casualties. So now they're coming forward with their last brigade over here, and it's going to be the same old story. They'll come forward. There's nothing they can do. They cannot get by these squares, so they cannot get to anything behind it. They're going to eat a lot of close-range fire as they come into range. This unit, as soon as it comes, it will stop, and run away when they get hit with the canister. This is what these formations were designed to do. So here we got some guns trying to move down the side of the road. You can see them. Some more cannon coming forward. Now they're kind of covered by some infantry here, but I think those infantry units are pretty shaky. And maybe I can just run out around them. Get some cavalry, run out around them and hit these guys as they're coming up. Now here comes some more infantry. Now the only problem is this is a long-range run right here, so I'm going to really sap a lot of the fatigue of this unit. These are good troops though, level 7 troop quality, veterans, so I should be able to get a nice good run out of them and still be able to maybe run some of these guns off. If nothing else, I'll just turn them around and they'll have to withdraw to the kind of the Papillot area over here. But I certainly don't want them to come into this kind of range. So we definitely want to come up here and turn into these guns and either capture them or run them off. So because these guys are such high troop quality, you can see that they're really not taking a huge hit on this long run here to their fatigue. The higher the troop quality, better morale, better fatigue, better combat experience. These are really solid troops right here. This is the 1st Squadron of the 5th Regiment of Cuirassiers. And the infantry, as I thought, was pretty shaky. That's why they weren't advancing to begin with. So the mere approach of cavalry has run them off, which basically leaves those guns free and clear. Or the path to these guns free and clear. So let's hit it. We still haven't taken that big of a hit to our fatigue. And let's go here. Vive la France. And you can see the guns are turning around. Looks like it's a... this looks like a 6-gun battery, and maybe another 2 6-gun batteries over here. So if I can capture all of them, great. You know, I have a feeling my fatigue will get too low to capture them all. But if we can run them off and have them fall back to kind of in here, that's fine. They won't be able to do us any harm from there. So yeah, now as I'm charging, my fatigue is starting to take a bigger hit. We're winning. These guns are pulling back. And can I get any more charges out of these guys? Their fatigue is pretty low now. I think when they get to winded, they won't charge at all. But okay, they're going. Alright, they're winded, but let's see if they keep the charge going. No, see, that's it. Once they're winded, that's it. But you know what? I mean, I could kind of leave them out there. There's no infantry there, and there's, you know, as long as that cavalry unit is there, that artillery will not try to pass them, and they'll withdraw to a safe distance. So I might just leave them out there. You know, as long as they're sitting there, their fatigue will slowly build back up, and you know, maybe then I can go and capture the guns. So we're bringing a skirmisher unit up to screen the square as infantry approaches. We're going to put them into line as well because there's no cavalry here, and so no reason why I should stay in the square. The cavalry is all over here, tied up on the right side of the line, and nope. Like I said, all the fire has kind of gone out of the Prussians. So you know, it occurs to me that I can kind of just keep walking this artillery down, even if I can't charge them because I'm winded. If I can just keep walking them down while they're limbered, they will continue to retreat. So still, none of this Prussian cavalry has any intention of coming forward. And if these units try to come forward, I'm going to be able to form these guys into line. We'll put some skirmishers out in front of them. Bring some skirmishers out and screen this line. But no, these guys are not really making any kind of effort to come out. So yeah, okay, we've gotten these guns to pull back to the kind of inside the Papalot area over here. They're really, really out of range of being any kind of threat to us at this point. And time to do some more supply wagon runs. That should take care of the Grand Battery, which is no longer quite as grand as it used to be because we stripped away a lot of the guns. Alright, so now these infantry units are coming forward. And we'll just split off some, well, that unit's a little too small, so we'll have to get them from somewhere else. These guys are right here. I would use them. There we go. Split off some skirmishers, screen these units in front. And maybe we'll put these guys into line. But with the skirmishers in front, it's not even really necessary. Even if these units form line, with the skirmishers screening the squares, it like really takes, like I said, it's like putting up the shields. So it's not the line units are not really going to shred the squares because they're going to be duking it out with the skirmishers, and the skirmishers are going to get the better of it anyway. So it's not really as critical, and there's no cavalry around to run off the skirmishers. All their cavalry is kind of tied up here. They're still taking some canister fire, getting mollywopped over there. And as you can see, these artillery pieces continue to fall back, and they're really out of range of anything now. Now I can only chase them back so far because there's Dutch-Belgian units in that building, and then they'll eventually start shooting at me. I think that's far back enough. We can begin to bring some of that cavalry back. And now we see some guns trying to move through the woods. So I've got this unit coming back. They're still not in great shape, fatigue-wise, but they ought to be able to start turning these units around, and I can bring some fresh cavalry forward to capture those remaining guns if they try to come forward. And this is what I'm talking about. As it starts to get later in the battle and gets a little darker out, the Prussians will try to bring some artillery forward. I can't fault them for that. That's really the only move they got in terms of, you know, if there's any way to start breaking down some of these fortresses, it would be with artillery. But I'm always on the lookout for artillery moving forward. And because we've shot so many of their units up that they're no longer really battle worthy, it's real easy for me to just send fresh cavalry squadrons out to kind of run them off. You know, these infantry units, they're real shaky. They'll break at the approach of cavalry. I won't even have to charge them. They'll just run at the approach. So these units are starting to turn around or move more sideways. Like I said, I just want to keep them from coming in here, anywhere close to the squares, really. You know, this battery is even a little further forward than I would like, but it's not too bad. And we're just slowly churning the butter on these cavalry over here. This is their kind of their last brigade over here. Once they're gone, that's it. A routed gun. Where did you guys come from? Oh boy, did you guys come from this? I know exactly where they came from. This stupid horse battery. Yep. Oh, I'm such an idiot. Why am I so stubborn? I'm so stubborn. I've gotten 2 of those guns shot up now. They were making a comeback for a while, and that's why I left them there. But, you know. I should have gotten that horse battery out of there a long time ago. Horse batteries duking it out with foot batteries at long range. That's just really never going to work out for the horse battery. You know, they have smaller guns and usually less guns in the battery. So, and they were tangling with about 3 British foot batteries out there, and I don't know why I was so stubborn. So, all right, we're at 84,000 points now. I mean, does it even matter at this point anymore? You know, it's such a ridiculous number. We still haven't taken 5,000 casualties yet, and we've inflicted over 18,000 casualties on the enemy. So this is a complete slaughter. And, you know, the Allies did absolutely nothing the entire battle. So again, here come more Prussian batteries trying to move forward. And we're just going to send cavalry forward to capture them, run them off, whatever we can do. The important thing is to catch them. Oh, here we go. Fresh battery. The important thing is to catch them while they're limbered. Because they cannot engage while they're limbered. And as you can see at the approach, I knew that just at the approach of cavalry, just these units were going to break. And we're just going to run headlong and see how many of these guns we can get. And guns are worth a lot of points. 30 points a gun. So one column coming forward, I'm not worried about that. They've got skirmishers in front of them. I'm sure they're in no condition to charge. They're just going to try and form line and they'll get shot up. Oh, so there's a good amount of guns here. We got, geez, at least 15 guns. All right, so this is definitely a Vive la France moment right here. And they're starting to turn around, but they are not faster than fucking cavalry. And here we go. Sorry for my bad language right there. I've been trying very hard over the course of this series not to let those F-bombs slip. Normally I talk like a sailor, and occasionally I guess one gets through. So we're just running these batteries down. 200 points already. Still in good shape. We've still got a lot of fatigue. And just one after another. And we're just running them down. We're at 300 points. Still got plenty of fatigue, although as we're going after these 3 guns, they are kind of putting enough distance between us that these guns might be able to get away. Because as they head into the woods, it will become much harder for the cavalry to keep up with them, because the woods will really slow the cavalry down. So they're going for it. So we're gonna have to peer into the woods here. Let's see how our boys do here. This is another Cuirassier squadron. Not as good as the first one. These guys are level 5 seasoned. And yeah, that's it. I don't think they can charge into the woods like this. Their fatigue is still good enough that they can charge, but I don't think they can charge in the woods. So we'll bring them back. That's fine. They did a great job. They got almost 400 points. They ran off a lot of guns. You know, if we can keep them all back here in the woods like this, they're really no threat to us whatsoever, because we're all the way over here. And that certainly, you know, we captured a lot of guns there. You know, at 30 points a gun, and we got almost 400 points. So, you know, that was quite a large amount of guns we got. So a lot of the front line of almost all of Violence Brigade is gone at this point. I think all they've got is this one battalion. All the cannon in front of La Haye Sainte are gone, which is really going to soften the amount of casualties that we're taking from the on our boys inside La Haye Sainte. Who are these guys? Where are you guys running? Well, it looks like we lost a battalion, but it looks like they were involved for quite a long time. Occasionally you're going to get a routed unit. That's why we have reserves, and we have a whole lot of them up over here. And we'll just connect this whole line of skirmishers to this line of skirmishers, and we'll have a nice long skirmisher line here. We've got a cavalry squadron in here in case we need to just maneuver them around to force units into square. But you know, I really don't think the Prussians have much left in the way of aggressive intentions, other than seeing if they can get artillery to come forward. So now that these guns are out of the woods, and our fatigue is still good here, maybe we can get some guns. You know, these guys have almost 400 points. They've only lost 4 men. You know, they're still in pretty good shape. We can get some more charges and capture some more artillery. And there we go. Another one. 413 points. So we're taking a few casualties as we approach now, but you know, I don't think it's going to stop us from taking these guns. There's no infantry to defend them. Some of them are trying to limber up, but here we go. We're up almost over 500 points now. It's just getting stupid. We're just taking their whole gun line. So another 500. Oh, these guys are gonna charge them and run them off. I don't think they have time to form square. No, they're breaking and running. Let's see if we can run them down and get some points. Yep, we're doing a number on them. 50, 14, 15. And their fatigue is getting low enough that we can withdraw them. But they did good. They cleared out a whole bunch of guns and ran off an infantry unit. That's why you never want to leave artillery unprotected, kiddies, because cavalry is always a threat. I have no idea what this one line unit thinks they're going to do against all this. Yeah, that's not going to do anything, fellas. You're too far away. Their whole right is basically collapsed at this point. $548 points. Ran off a lot of they lost a lot of artillery, the Prussians did on that. And I think they will think twice about trying that BS again, bringing their guns forward. And that is a Prussian supply wagon that we actually captured. And it has now become one of our supply wagons. So we're just going to bring it back over here, and now we have an extra supply wagon. 87,000 points, not like it matters anymore. Probably at around 25, 26,000 on that objective alone at Platz-and-Law. Still have not crossed 5,000 casualties, although we are about to. We're at 49.96, so a couple of more hits and we'll be over 5,000 casualties. So 1 hour left of the battle, guys. We are definitely in the home stretch here. And look, this is all that's left. That's all that's left. One squadron. You know, they're all their cavalry. They had 2 whole brigades over here, and they were all routed by the fortress, and they still kept coming and back. Just really stupid. You know, if all you have is cavalry to go up against a fortress, don't even bother. Just hang back and watch the show. So 42,459 points just from La Haye-Sainte. And our men inside, of course, are taking a pounding, but you know, the amount of men they're losing compared to the amount of points we're gaining from that objective is, you know, inconsequential. You know, yeah, every couple hours a unit might rout out of La Haye-Sainte. We have to, you know, put a fresh unit in. So what? Who cares? The objective is worth way more than whatever amount of men. There goes the final Prussian squadron. That's everybody. I think we've run off that. Those entire 2 brigades of cavalry are off the field. They're off the map. As the Prussian will to fight winds down over here. So as the Prussian collapse continues, I'm going to run to the fridge. I'll be right back, fellas. Alright, fellas, I'm back. And it looks like we're doing supply wagon runs over by La Haye-Saint. Yeah, some of the guns some of these howitzers have fallen off the line as they've run out of, well, they're out of everything. Now, one gun really is out of everything. And like I said, that was just because I let these guns, you know, I did supply wagon runs before the Prussians arrived, but once the Prussians arrived, I stopped worrying about the guns over here and just focused on that area of the battle with the Prussians. And that lasted about an hour and a half before I could kind of cleanly come over here again. So yeah, a lot of guns on the Grand Battery, as well as the guns by La Haye-Saint, simply just expended all their ammo. So 89,000 points, just keeps getting higher and higher and higher. So we finally have taken over 5,000 casualties. So this gun shot itself dry, completely out on every type of ammo. So you can see the Prussians have really, like I said, they still have a lot of forces back here. Kind of clipped off the map, but they have a lot of forces back in the woods that they just haven't brought forward. I don't know the extent of how much they've got back there, but on the mini map it looks like a decent amount. But I think all the fight has just gone out of them at this point. I think they've lost a ton of men, and you know, the AI just figures it isn't worth it to send more troops to get killed in front of that impregnable ridge that we have set up there. So I'm trying to resupply this stupid gun that has no ammo by bringing the supply wagon kind of right near where it's going to end up. Oh, look at all the dead Prussian bodies on the field. Now, at this point, the Prussians have lost so much infantry that now there's really nothing this cavalry could do. This cavalry here was a waste. This could have served a lot better purpose when they actually had infantry on the field, you know. But now there's just only a couple of battalions of infantry left, and they're in terrible shape. You know, they're literally like one cavalry squadron approach away from routing. Now all this cavalry is of absolutely no use to the Prussians, because if they just come forward on their own and try, the same thing will happen here as happened over on the right. They'll just get run off. So that was really a wasted opportunity for the Prussians in terms of finding any real use for that kind of ball of cavalry they have built up in the center. Now they're useless. There's no infantry to support them. Not that I really think they would have broken through even if they had used it, but it certainly would have been a better option than just letting all their infantry get slaughtered the way it did. $90,000 points. You know, we're like more than 3 times what we need for a major victory. Like I said, 30,000 points for a major victory in this scenario is really, really low, considering the amount of points these 2 objectives cough up. I mean, you can see we're only, on this objective, we're only 600 points away from having enough points for a major victory just with that objective. You know, like I said, we didn't even need to capture Lahaisan. We could have gotten everything we needed just from one objective, you know? You know, so I think it should have been a lot higher. I think it should have been something more like, you know, maybe 60 or 70,000 points for a major victory. But, you know, on the other hand, I'm sure there's no way that the scenario author could have ever predicted somebody like me who would take the absolute cheapest route to getting a major victory. You know, but like I've always said, I don't play this like a war game or like a historical simulation, because it really isn't. You know, so I play it like a video game, which is what it really is. You know, so I play to beat the scenario, not to recreate what historically happened. You know, and in some scenarios, the victory conditions are very, very easy to meet. In other ones, it takes some work. It really depends on the scenario. You know, and if there are any kind of cheesy ways to cheese out a major victory. In this scenario, it was very, very easy to find the cheapness. You know, we're 200 points away from having 30,000 points just on this Plassanois objective that didn't even appear until 1700. It's just crazy how many points you can get in this scenario. You know, and that's not even including all these objectives are worth a lot. Like the Allied right back here and the Allied left, I think these are like 200 points a minute too. You know, and I think Hugomont is like 100 points a minute. These two are waypoint objectives, but that's 1,000 points right there. So, I mean, yeah, you can get a crazy amount of points. Like if you were to capture all of these, I mean, it might be like 200,000 or 300,000 points. You know, just with the two we've got almost 100,000 points. Granted, about 20,000 of those points are just from the butt kicking we gave the Prussians. So this fight is pretty much just degenerated into an artillery duel at this point. Some of my squares will take some casualties from the Prussian artillery, because just being in square is, you're more prone to take artillery casualties, but you know what, I don't really care. It's certainly nothing compared to the amount of points we're gaining from these two objectives, you know. And if one of them breaks and runs, so what? I got plenty of reserves. The Prussians are making really no attempt to fight anymore anyway. They really, you know, out front here anyway, they don't really even have anything to fight with anymore. I don't know what they've got back in the woods back here, behind this line of trees here. It looks like they've got a decent amount of troops in here, but they're really unwilling to bring them forward at this point. And I can't really see them. I can only see them on the mini-map. And I don't see them, I just see question marks. You know, so I know there's units there, but I don't know what's there. So almost 92,000 points. Nothing at all going on the left. The Allies, like I said, they haven't made a move the entire battle. I think the only time the Allied army has moved is if either their units are routed or, you know, their supply wagons. That's about all they've been moving. Every other unit on the Allied side has pretty much just kind of stayed put. Finally, we've gotten these guys resupplied. Not much left for these guys to shoot at. All the artillery is kind of gone. A couple of guns up here, but really we shot the hell out of the Allied guns. So a column coming forward, but I don't even think they'll. I mean, they're on the verge of routing probably. I have no idea what one battalion even thinks they're gonna do. I think they're just gonna come forward and turn right around. And if they don't, we'll shoot them, we'll charge them, we'll just get rid of them. None of this cavalry is of any use now. All this cavalry. This is at least 2 brigades of cavalry, and they can't do anything with them now because there's no infantry to support them and give them a chance to do anything. So yeah, some of my squares are getting pounded on a little bit. Like I said, I don't care at this point. There's no way I'm ducking off 60,000 points. Just this one objective is enough for a major victory. We're at 31,000 points just from it. And pretty much the exact same position we held at the beginning. All that fighting the Prussians did, and it didn't even gain them a foot. Not even a foot. Yeah, they just turn around and I told you they were really close to routing. So they just, yep, they turn around and they're hitting the bricks. And I'm pretty sure that's a rout. That doesn't look like a unit that's going to stop and reform. So we got about 40 minutes left in the battle. Sometime after 8 o'clock or 2000 here, it will start to get dark. And the Prussians may make another attempt at moving their guns forward, but we've got plenty of cavalry. We'll be ready for it. So, okay, it looks like 2 more cavalry squadrons are coming forward here. See, they've got all these units kind of in the woods back here. But are these either routed units? I mean, some of this is artillery. That we push back, in the area between La Haye-Sainte and this fort over here. What are all these guys back here? Are these just routed units or broken units that have fallen back? I don't really know. We may have dealt them a much deadlier blow than I even realized. Yeah, the square's getting pounded on pretty heavily. This one too. But like I said, I really don't care. So, there's two columns of infantry out here, but like I said, when they come forward like this and just stop and sit out here, these are not units that are in good shape. If they were in good shape, they'd come forward. If they just stop and sit out here, this might be that unit that we saw fall back before. Maybe they weren't routed and they actually stopped and regrouped, but they're absolutely no threat to us. The young guard over there wasn't even engaged. The Prussians never got that far south. They were basically stopped up on their approach. And so they never even got near Plassanois. So another brave column here, or line, I'm not sure what formation that is there, is trying to come forward. But there's a skirmish line here. They're going to have to form square because there's cavalry here, there's guns here. I don't know what they're hoping to accomplish with one little battalion like that. But we'll get our supply wagon out of there. All our skirmishers have been topped off with ammo, so they're good to go. Yeah, they're already half the battalion's turning around already. Or are they just forming column? It looked like they were turning around. So now we've got 2 skirmisher units lined up to meet them. They're forming line way far out. We already know this. We already know, and they're running there. Yeah, they don't want any part of this. Like I said, all the fight is gone. The same thing will happen. This unit will just turn around and run too. These units are fresh here, these 2 squadrons, but I don't know what they think they're going to do. There's a really solid skirmisher line out here. Kind of covering this whole front right here. So I've got some cavalry moving forward. That could succeed in running off my skirmishers, but, you know, it's just 2 squadrons, you know. I could bring up a lot more cavalry if I need to run them off. I think these fellas are done. And I know these guys are in terrible shape. They're just going to turn around and run. So really, I just want to see what this cavalry is going to do. This squadron has just stopped. Let's see what this squadron's going to do. Looks like they're just going to stop and form right here and sit there. Like I said, as soon as these guys get close, they're just going to turn around and run away. They'll form line, get shot at a little bit, and they'll run off. No problem. Yeah, they're still trying to come forward, but you know, that's not going to work. This unit has already been run off a time or two. Alright, so the cavalry is moving forward. Told you they would just turn around and run. So we've got a bunch of skirmishers here that could be a good bait for this cavalry. The only thing is there's so many of them, how could I possibly recall them all quick enough? So here they come. So I'm going to have to start recalling some of these units early. There we go. And we'll just leave the center squadron here, the center skirmisher unit here, as the bait. And them I'm holding off on. I'm going to wait till the last minute. Alright, 1 squadron has already turned around. Another one is continuing to go. And, oh, too far away to unsplit. Oh, my old, didn't, that sucked. Alright, well, they withdraw. But let's see if we can hit them with our cavalry. Run them off. Well, that plan bit me in the butt. Oh, look, we're going to run around behind them and then turn into them. Ouch. And, yeah, off they go. Go get them, boys. Oh, they're kicking their butts. You know what, I'll bet that skirmisher unit was from that battalion we saw routed before. If I can click on them. Yeah, we'll click out something from Bowden's brigade and we'll just replace them. Now the other 2 skirmisher units we recalled, so we didn't lose them. So we'll just re-kick them out. Oh, here comes the other squadron now. And we'll recall these skirmishers because I didn't, and we'll turn the cavalry around and just recharge. Go get them, boys. Run those guys off too. And they turn right around. They want no part of the French cuirassiers here. Those are level 7 veteran troops. Those are really good troops. And they surrendered. So that's it for the cavalry. And now we can kick out our skirmishers again. So one last little foray by the Prussians, but 1 cavalry unit got ran off, the other surrendered. These units keep coming forward and running away. They're no threat to anybody. And we have our skirmisher line reset up. And we've pulled our cavalry back. Let them rest if we need them again. Those are our levels. No, that's our level 7 veteran squadron there. So if we need them again, they'll be available. And these guys are they keep coming forward, running away, keep coming forward, running away. Sooner or later, that runaway will turn into a rout. And that will be pretty much the end of that. $96,000 points. Time to resupply this battery. It's been a while. Might as well hit the Grand Battery one more time. Well, that was a really concentrated area of fighting. You can totally see where all the bodies are. You got to give it up to the Prussians, though, for that first hour in the last video. They did make a good go at it. I can't say they didn't try. But this is just not really a fair formation. You know, a fair setup, so to speak. All that Prussian cavalry just completely run off. They had 2 whole brigades over here, and there's nothing left of them. And this unit will just turn around and run again as soon as they get within musket range. The first shot by my skirmishes will make them turn around and run away. So my skirmishers have opened up. We got a Cuirassier squadron we'll bring up. If they insist on staying there, we'll put them in square, but like I said, they just turned around and ran. I think this is that unit I initially sent over to run off the guns by Papalot. They're nice and rested again. We can use them again. I did use a considerable amount of my reserves, though. At least in the center of the line. You can see most of the reserves that I had back here are no longer there. They've been put into the fortress. So honestly, if this little Prussian cavalry squadron here decides to make an issue of things, I'm just going to run them off with this squadron, I think. So I think this unit is finally completely routed. They came forward and fell back about 5 times before they finally decided they'd had enough. Look, fellas, you are a tiny squadron. I will run you down with my cuirassiers if you keep coming forward. Alright. Don't say I didn't warn you. Guess they didn't want none. We'll just kick out another skirmisher unit here to replace the one I recalled. I have to play games with the movement here to get them to go the way I want them to go. So we've just passed 8 o'clock. It will start to get dark soon. We are in the last half hour of this very long 9-hour battle. And I see another Prussian column coming forward here. However, I think this is just one of the ones that we've continually been forcing back, and they will most likely come into musket range and run away. Put some skirmishers out there. This is kind of really the last gasp for the Prussians. Very near 100,000 points at this point. Inflicted nearly 20,000 casualties. And yeah, they're not even coming forward, they're just sitting there. I don't think they have it in them to make another advance. Now, it'll be interesting to see if the Prussians try to move their guns forward as it gets darker. They've already had bad luck with trying to do that, because every time they have, I've run their guns down and they've lost a lot of them. And I've still got plenty of cavalry to do that again if they try to advance their guns. Wow, this square did really good. They got 400 points. As you can see, the cavalry squadron in that one Prussian column, they're just kind of sitting outside of engaged distance. They don't really have any, I don't think they have any wind left in their sails. Well, they have gotten one gun into fairly close range here, but it's only one gun. And this cavalry squadron is running. They may be routed. Have to keep an eye and see if they stop and reform. Really nothing left over here happening. You can see the sky is slowly starting to darken. You know, just slightly you can see the sky starting to tint, and the long-range visibility is starting to fall off a little bit. And in the last like 10-15 minutes of the battle, like in Ligny, it'll start to get so dark that you know, can't see your beak in front of you. So, in the next 2 minutes or so, we will cross 100,000 points. Looks like that cavalry squadron made another attempt to advance and decided, nope, not liking it. You can kind of see the long-range visibility kind of out here is really starting to drop off. Little Prussian supply wagon. I don't know who's out here that they would be resupplying. $35,000 points just from the Plassenois objective, which is spelled wrong, I think. Where's the N? It's supposed to be Plassenois. They're missing the N after between the A and the C here. They've got Plassenois. So these northernmost parts of the fortress here were never really even engaged. You guys are just going to turn around again. You know it, and I know it. But maybe, just maybe, yeah, there they go. Yeah. You know what? Next time you guys try that, I'm just going to run you guys down with my cuirassiers. So, alright, it is now dusk. You can see the screen has turned this has turned color to simulate dusk. Some of the guns you see are no longer visible, so the artillery fire will start to slacken off now as less guns are visible to between both lines. And you can also see we've lost all the cavalry in terms of the visibility, and a lot of them are starting to move off under cover of darkness. We really can't see much on the Allied ridge anymore in terms of visibility. All the units that we could see back here, they're no longer in line of sight. So pretty much everything back here is going to slack off now in terms of the fire. The Grand Battery has ceased. Some of our batteries still have these units in sight, but a lot of the cavalry is out of sight now, and just a couple of these guns are left. So yeah, these units didn't all rout over here. We can't see them anymore. It's gotten too dark. Try it again, fellas. I dare you. Try it again. I'm like sitting on these cuirassiers. I'm just waiting. Daring that squadron to come forward again. This time if they do it again, I will run them off. So the infantry column is starting to move. It looks like they're turning around and withdrawing. Getting out of there. Yeah, so all this cavalry is still here, but they're just question marks now because I can't see them anymore. As well as all these units back here, they're all just question marks. I can't see them anymore. All I can really see is what's going on right there. Yeah, now that there's a harasser squadron here, this cavalry end is like, yeah, maybe not. The long-range visibility is really starting to drop off now. So 36,000 points just from the Plassanois objective, and we have crossed 100,000 points. We're now at 101,000 points. Oh, there goes that cavalry squadron. Off they go. I think that's the last we've seen of them. Well, they're regrouping, it looks like. But I don't know if they're going to come forward anymore. What the hell are they doing? What are you fellas doing? Are you routed? I think they're routed. No, guess not. I just don't know what they're doing. They ran back, then they ran forward. I swear to God, if you guys come forward, I'm running you off with my cuirassiers. Now they're back to just sitting there. They ran, then they came back. And they're running again. Yeah, there's one manic cavalry squadron. They can't make up their mind whether to would charge or run. So with the darkening and the decreased visibility now, the Prussians will really no longer be able to effectively bombard my squares. So I don't even have to worry about that anymore. As you can see, it's really starting to, the visibility is really starting to drop off. We can't see any of these cannon back here now, so there's only a few Prussian cannon left. And we can't see any of this or any of this. All we can really see is this little group right in front of here. And as the visibility continues to drop off, more and more units will fall off the visibility radar there. And as you can see here, that the gunfire has basically completely stopped, except for that one Prussian gun that's kind of still hanging in there in range. But I don't think any of our guns are in range anymore to actually see any of these units. They've all pretty much stopped shooting at this point. So yeah, that's the end of the pretty much the end of the fighting. You know, it's too dark to fight now. So we got 15 minutes left, and that will be the end of the French Battle of Waterloo. Kind of a overwhelming, crushing French victory here, but like I said, this was kind of a really cheesy way to beat the scenario. So as you can see, some of the guns are now trying to move forward, but they're not moving too far forward. I'm not interested in trying to go out and turn guns that are that far away, turn them around. That's kind of really far distance. And with the visibility what it is, and only 15 minutes left in the scenario, I really don't care that they're out there. See, we've lost visual contact with pretty much the entire Allied ridge. Can't really see anything of them anymore except for what's out in front of the ridge. But all the gun batteries over here, can't see them anymore. Obviously there's troops there because they still have that objective, but we can't see them anymore. Nevertheless, we're still racking up points because we still hold the La Haye Sainte and the Plassanois objectives. So we are at 102,500 points. I don't think these guns are even firing. I don't really think they're in range of doing anything. You can see how dark it's getting. It's very quickly we're losing visibility out past anything, 100 yards, 200 yards. You can see it starts to really drop off. And like I said, I think in the last 10 minutes or so of the battle, it will get really, really, really dark. The Young Guards artillery actually got 153 points. That's not bad considering how far away they were. This battery got 86 points. Probably picking at the cavalry, at the Prussian cavalry that was hanging around out there on the other side of the creek. It looks like pretty much everybody has stopped shooting at this point. And yeah, not much more to say about it. Just waiting for the scenario to end and the timer to run out at 20:30. One gun is still firing, but they're not going to do anything from that far away. So I'm going to run to the fridge one more time, fellas. I'll be right back. All right, fellas, I am back, and oh, I see. I have my traditional waiting out the clock end game screen up here, where I go to the army commander and just pop open the mini map and kind of watch from afar. So as you can see, vastly different formation than we started out with, where we had basically our front line extended all the way out here and all the way here. We've really pulled in all our flanks so that we had a nice kind of U-shaped or horseshoe-shaped defensive line. And we had a lot of reserves pulled back. A lot of the reserves up here got used up. None of the reserves here got used up. A whole bunch of cavalry back here, basically, that would have stopped anything if they had broken through, but they never had a shot of breaking through. So an officer appears. Once in a while, they'll come into range, but there's really nothing going on over here. Look how dark it's getting. And anytime I see an officer moving down the road like this, really what I want to see if there's guns behind them, because if they are, we'll gobble them up. The AI will sometimes in the last few minutes of a battle, as the darkness closes around them, they will try to move their guns forward. But it looks like it's just an officer. As I said, we really captured a lot of the guns that were attempting to come forward earlier. So I don't know what they really have left back here in terms of artillery. I really think we gobbled up a lot of it. But yeah, you know, the amount of points that La Haye Sainte and the Plassanois objective are worth just kind of really makes it irrelevant to kind of go for any of these objectives along the Allied line here. Um, and you can pretty much just take La Haye Sainte and Plassanois and earn an obscene amount of points that way. So it's not even necessary to attack the Allies. And because historically the French were the ones that did the attacking, the Allies are pretty much just kind of scripted to sit here until you do what you're supposed to do, which is attack them. But we never did. All we did was capture La Haye Sainte and really pulled our flanks in away from the Allies, and like I said, kind of formed this defensive horseshoe-shaped formation here. We didn't, despite the fact that we caused 4,000 or so casualties on the Allies, their army was largely about as big as ours are. You just can't see it because it's all back here behind the ridge, the Mont Saint Jean ridge here, that kind of ran along this road. So the fact that the Allied army looks kind of small is really misleading. There are a ton of troops back here that you can't see. So it always looks a little smaller from the French point of view, than it really is. But if we would have attacked them and gotten up onto this ridge and actually seen what's down here behind it, it's a lot of men. I'm not sure what we faced of the Prussians. Certainly, I know the 4th Corps was in the lead, but I don't know if that's all we really faced was the Prussian 4th Corps and some cavalry. I think the 1st Corps, von Ziesen's Corps, was behind them, but I don't know if they're actually in the order of battle. It doesn't feel to me like we faced more than one corps. It feels like it was just the 4th Corps. I think it would have been a lot more troops on the field if we were facing 2 corps. Not that I think 2 corps would have gotten through this any more than 1 corps would have. We would have wrecked them as well. So nighttime is here, and as you can see, everything is now question marks. So we cannot even see these units in front of us anymore. And a little over 4 minutes left in the scenario. And we're at about 105,000 points. So we are really coming down to the end of the series, guys. It's hard to believe. When I started this a year ago, or just about a year ago, I think it was kind of a pipe dream that I'd ever actually make it to the end. I mean, I knew I could do it. I had already beaten every scenario in the game, but I wasn't actually sure that anyone would actually be interested in seeing it when I started. So it was kind of at first like an experiment, like, oh, well, let me do the brigade series and see if I start getting views or getting subscribers, and if it picks up, then I'll keep going from there. And here we are a year later with only one scenario left in the game, which of course is the Allied scenario for the Battle of Waterloo, which I promise will be a lot more exciting than this scenario, because obviously we play the Allies on the defensives and the French are scripted to attack, and as the Allies we have to defend against those attacks. So we're gonna have a real battle. There's no real way of cheesing it out in that scenario. However, we we will still use some of our broken tactics to make the defense much easier. So about 2.5 minutes left, and I suppose I could have just sped up time here at the end just to get to the end, but I've never really done that in any video that I've done so far, other than in certain Grog Toolbar demystified videos. But it's certainly in any scenario playthroughs, I've never done that. So I didn't want to start doing it now. Just, you know, obviously, if you guys are watching on YouTube, you could just skip to the end to see the victory screen pop up. Or, I mean, it's kind of obvious. There's 105,000 points on the screen. We won. So we just jumped up another 200 points because the objectives, as long as you keep holding them, they'll keep coughing up the points. So even just sitting here at night doing nothing, we're still earning 300 points a minute. And look how dark it is. So almost 50,000 points just from that objective, from the La Haye Sainte objective. And we are into our final minute. So we took just over 5,000 casualties and inflicted just over 19,000 casualties. So we started off with about 77,000 men and did not fall below 70,000 men. So Napoleon's army was barely scratched. The Allied army was also kind of barely scratched, a little more scratched than we were. The Prussians got a butt whooping of a lifetime. So we're into our final 10 seconds here. Nighttime, and here we go, guys. It's about to pop, and there we go. Major victory, 106,000 points. Just crazy amount of points for doing very little other than engaging the Prussians. The first three videos of this, we really didn't do anything except sit here and redeploy the army. So yeah, definitely not one of the hardest scenarios in the game to beat. You would think it would be, being the full Battle of Waterloo, but no, actually very, very easy because of what the objectives are worth and just how long the scenario is. In terms of using one or two objectives just over a very long period of time to rack up the points we need. So yeah, that's it, fellas. That is it for the French Battle of Waterloo. We have one scenario left in the game, and that is the Battle of Waterloo as the Allies. And then that will be it. We will close the series on that scenario, and I'm gonna miss doing this. As I got better at it, it became a lot of fun. So anyway, one more scenario to go, guys. It's again going to be another 5-part video series because it's also 9 hours long, and yeah, I promise that one will be a lot more exciting than this one was. This one was pretty boring through most of it. It got exciting when the Prussians came in, but we had so much time to set up that defense that it was a foregone conclusion that the Prussians were really going to get the butt kicking of a lifetime. So all right, fellas, that's it, and I will see you next time. Take it easy.